Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital. Hope you're all doing great, and welcome to this new video right here on Bitcoin. We're going to do a full update. We'll talk a little bit about the price action over the course of the last 24 hours. Although, we've been able to hold up relatively well, I'd argue. But have we really seen much movement? No. I mean, of course, it's the weekend. That was to be expected, and I expect more movement and more volatility to come over the course of the next 24 hours. Obviously, right now, the volume and the liquidity has decreased quite significantly. At this point in time, the volume for Bitcoin is $23 billion, which is quite low. I mean, if you go to the last month, there's only a couple of times that we reached that level. I mean, the last time was right here at the end of September. Very low, and usually when the volume drops down very low, the liquidity also drops down very low. So we can expect some volatility. I mean, especially next week, when obviously on Wednesday we have the FOMC meeting. Now, the FOMC meeting, I will still keep you updated on that in the next couple of days. It's on Wednesday, so we still have some days left. In general, the price action before that is with lower volume, and therefore also with more volatility. So that is in general what I think you need to be prepared for. But ultimately, I still have to do some research on the FOMC and think about what I really expect ahead of that and after that. So that is something I will still keep you updated on in the next couple of days, but we won't go in depth about that in this video yet. Now, talking about Bitcoin and what I expect, rightfully so. Yesterday, someone asked me that there was some sort of a white line, so something like this, I think, to the downside before a move to the upside, and I did not really speak about that move in my video. So I wanted to talk about that briefly because it was very sharp, and it's a good question. Because what I meant with that line is that when we're talking about Bitcoin right now, purely structurally, but also fundamentally, I'm relatively optimistic and relatively bullish on Bitcoin. All right, we've had a beautiful reclaim of the value area low right here of the range since July. On Friday afternoon we did that already. We've been able to hold that so far, even though it's with low volume. Like, yes, that's true, but ultimately, like, it's not the end of the world. And outside of that, on the lower time frames, we've also seen some constructive price action. I've already shown that very often in the last couple of videos, so I won't go in depth about that. But because of the FOMC meeting, but also because of the lack of liquidity, I think you should be ready. And I think that there's actually a quite high possibility, or quite high likelihood, I should say, of a spike down before we head into that next resistance level at 114,000. 114,000 is my next price target. I assume that we're going to go up there. I think the fundamentals pointed towards that direction. I think the technicals, especially since Friday, pointed in that direction as well. But we can certainly, and you should definitely be ready for a spike under 110,000 before reclaiming that level and getting that move to the upside at 114,000. And at 114,000, we'll see again. I mean, ultimately, I do think that we'll be able to rally up higher into the previous month point of control at 116, and then afterwards also into the point of control since July at 117.5. So ultimately, I am still bullish, but I just think that, being bullish doesn't mean we cannot have a pullback. And given the current situation and given the current conditions, I would argue a pullback or some sort of a, minor flush, low time frame flush, or just a liquidation spike to the downside is actually quite likely. And I think you should be prepared for that. So yeah, and we'll also talk about that in my Ethereum video a little bit more later this morning. I think on Ethereum there's actually some better setups. I mean, on Bitcoin I'm a little bit how do you call it, a little bit more conservative, or I don't really see a strong setup when we're talking about that flush. I mean, maybe all the way down to 108,500 where we still have that fair value gap, but I would think that if we drop down that low, there's probably bad news, and if there's bad news, I don't want to buy into a liquidation spike to the downside, because it could also be the start of a new move to the downside, right? So I'll keep you updated on that, but that's ultimately what I think you need to know for the next 24 hours heading into next week. So hopefully it helps. But for now, have a great Sunday. Take care and bye.